people who are naysayers about EVs, like they buy for the edge case, right? So we got a lot of those questions. It's the people that say, but yeah, I want to drive my pickup, towing a trailer in 20 degrees below zero up a steep hill, right? Over 600 miles. It's like, how often do you do that, right? And so they're basically asking for the impossible, or the thing that most people will only do, as he said, once in their entire ownership experience. The other thing that I loved is how both Matt and Erica talked about how neighbors come to them. And there was a study done, I think it's been about 15 years ago now, a very famous behavioral economics study about solar, about what's called the neighborhood effect, right? That a neighborhood just sits there without solar. But once the first house puts solar on their roof, just what we heard, the neighbors start asking about it. You know, what did it cost? How was the payback? How was blah, blah, blah. And then another one, another one. So a tip for all the automakers in the room, just put an EV in every neighborhood and sales are going to explode. Right? The last thing is Jessica used the word joy, right? And that's a perfect transition to our next session, because one of the themes we've been hearing today is all about charging and charging pains and those types of things. So let's go ahead and bring up our next panel with interview and chat with John Voelcker and Matt Teske to dive deeply into solving this, consumer charging anxiety issue. Not going to imply that John Voelcker and I are old, but the last time he and I were in a large room like this was at the Sex Pistols conference at Winterland in 1978.
True.
We actually were. We didn't know each other then, but anyway, take it away.
Damn kids. All right.
Are we going to be as exciting as the Sex Pistols?
That's for the audience.
Okay.
Their ratings. And
We've already got some great music trivia going already. So.
hopefully fewer injuries.
Yes.
But, okay. Thank you, everybody. We have a countdown happening. So, I'm John Voelcker. I'm now a freelance reporter specializing in electric vehicles. I ran something called Green Car Reports for 9 years, and now I write for Car and Driver and a bunch of other outlets. Over to you.
I am Matt Teske, and I'm the founder and CEO of Chargeway, which has been mentioned a few times today, but we're going to get into the details as to why.
So, I've known Matt and Chargeway for more than 6 years. I actually met him in June 2017 and wrote an article with a headline, I had to look it up, Chargeway, the best EV idea you have never heard of. So, audience survey, although we have lights glaring at us, how many people in the audience have actually ever used Chargeway? Raise your hands. Okay.
Ooh.
How many people, go talk to them. How many people have used PlugShare? Okay, ABRP? Okay, so 6 years after I wrote that article, and I was impressed by what Matt was doing, EV time is fast. We now have 4.2 million cars with plugs on US roads, which would have been a staggering number in 2017. But charging remains complex, it remains confusing, and it clearly remains a pain point for at least half the EV drivers on US roads. So one of the things I wanted to talk to Matt about, and first I put in a plug, I actually did a 4-part series a couple months ago called Charging is Changing on charged EVs, which if you're interested in looking in more depth, look it up. But one of the things I wanted to use our time to talk about was what has changed since 2017 in the broadest charging ecosystem, and what hasn't changed?
Well, what hasn't changed is it's still complex. What has changed, I think, is what people's expectations were about what would basically win, right? if we rewind 7 years, 6, 7 years, we were still kind of having that battle of, okay, who's going to win the plug type wars, and Chatamo was on its way out, and CCS was the crowned king of North America. But then there was this other company off to the side doing their own thing called Tesla that said, we're not joining your party. 6 months ago, they were the odd man out. And here we are 6 months later, and now it has been a complete reversal of people saying, well, companies and both automakers and hardware providers for charging saying, we're switching to what Tesla has been doing for the last 10 plus years. So, yeah.
So I'm one of the EV curious. I walk into my local dealer. How do I find that stuff out? How do I know what the plug is? How do I know where to go?
Well, that's the biggest challenge. And I think this gets back to what some of the other panels have hit on, and even the last panel about the discussion of having to go through the process of learning, right? And there's oftentimes the discussion of how dealers they don't necessarily get the fact that they're not selling a car anymore; they're selling an energy experience. Matt in the last panel commented on that, saying it exposed him to all these other things that he can now do with his truck. And so there's a steep learning curve there because we haven't really discussed electricity in a way that people actually care about, ever. It's just been there and it's kept the power on. So,
but surely that must have improved over 6 years.
Well, that's the difference is like who's actually embraced that the right way. And in the previous panel that I was on with BJ and Adam discussing how are we talking about this, and I don't see that how we talk about it has improved. I think there's been two results. I think that the results have been, on one hand, we're just going to keep going with what early adopters have done, and we're going to just say everybody's going to learn what they did. So we're going to give that information to everybody in a screen and in all of our marketing materials. The other option has been, well, we know people aren't understanding that, so we got to come up with an easier way to explain it. So let's just throw words like ultra and hyper and whatever the last one I saw, which
then again, Mega Plus, was it?
Yeah, DC Plus or something. So on one hand, you have the lack of appreciation about what we're asking consumers to do, and we're just forcing information in front of them. And on the other hand, you have the appreciation for it that we need simplified, but it's not a comprehensive approach on how we can actually say it.
Okay. So having done this article series, you're obviously deep in charging for 6 years. What's gotten better in charging over the last 6 years?
I think the best thing in the last 6 years is you can actually basically fill up and get back on the road with the right car and the right charger in about 15 to 20 minutes.
Am I sensing that's the lead-in to a product pitch?
Well, I think, right. How do you know to do that? And I think one of the things, the confusion points is what this visual provides that we're looking at here is depending on who you are, charging is unique to you and where you will fill up. And not only where, but then the how that we're discussing it. Can I connect, and then how long will it take based on my vehicle and then based on the charger I select?
How much of that do you think people who plug in at home every night, let's assume they've gotten over that hurdle and they plug in at home, but then for the first time they're taking a road trip, how much of that do you think they understand?
Well, I think if they've decided to buy the car and they're plugging it at home, they've on one hand, the early adopters, they learned everything in advance, so they were already confident. I think what we're finding now, and BJ commented on earlier, is we're moving into this new phase of people that are buying a car because they love the brand, or they love the look of it, and that's how they've always bought cars. Yeah. But then they're getting surprised on the fact of, I do need to understand how to take this car I fell in love with beyond my home. And so I think that and this is what we tried to solve with Chargeway from the outset, which was, again, these individuals all have a unique use case. And so with version 1 of our software, we looked at it and said, how do we translate your user experience for charging to you? And we said, okay, well, that's number 1, you have to know you can connect, and you have to know how long it will take. That's what average people will care about when they realize it's not universal. And so then it comes down to, you tell us what car you drive. That's how we thought about it with Chargeways. Because it's the car you drive, it's personal to you. So we tailored the colors and numbers to the types of plugs and the power levels so that when you choose your car, it's a visualization of all that complexity, but into something very simple.
For the New Yorkers among us, like subway maps.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, I wrote about some data from dealers. You had put kiosks with Chargeway into dealers. Talk a little bit about that, because that was, to me, an interesting example of the fact that if people get charging, if they can be walked through it, if they can see how it fits into their own life, their own use cases.
Well, yeah, at the end of the day, that's what the dealers need to support. It was basically selling the fuel. And so we said, okay, how do we help them do that based on the vehicle they sell? Because it's not, if you're driving a Nissan Leaf, it's different if you're driving a Chevrolet Bolt. And that's kind of where we started about 6-7 years ago. But as it gravitated forward, and now we see most vehicles that were gravitating towards one plug type, that took some of the complexity away, but you still need to contend with power and how long does it take you? And how do you explain the home charging opportunity compared to the road trip opportunity? And so with the Chargeway beacon, it used our software inside showrooms to walk people through a visualization and making the intangible tangible, basically. And saying if you select this vehicle, you will go to green stations, higher number of faster chargers.
And what were the results of that experiment?
The best part was we've deployed it in about 60 showrooms nationwide now, and that's been in partnership with about 14 different utilities. And that's been what we've needed to do, is combine those local stakeholders. The utilities make this new fuel, the dealers need to explain that new fuel. And so the result has been that consumers that are walking in are getting a better experience, being educated and explained, how does this work for you based on the brand of car I want to sell you today? And so the dealer response has been very, very positive, because they said, well, we're not having to figure out how to close the sale by guessing. And I'm also not just guessing, and then I might get a bad score later because I guessed, and someone might get stranded at a station because we said go to any fast charger and it'll take you 15 minutes, and it turns out not every fast charger is the same. So these are things that we have found in the research. Was we knew we were on the right track, but then we also realized that even within the educational components we had of simplifying to colors and numbers for plug types and power, we really had to go even further to be thinking on behalf of those consumers.
Okay. Last question before we talk about what's changed between 2017 and 2023 for Chargeway. I drive pretty much every new EV on the market. Life could be worse. And one of the things that obviously I play with is the routing software when a vehicle has it, and the differences among different makes and even different vehicles within a portfolio are staggering.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of surprised that for 2024 model year cars, you still have, look, here's a list of chargers on your route without any differentiation between level 2 and 350 and those old 50 kilowatt chargers that are still there. Do you see, though, as these things improve, because that stuff largely didn't exist in 2017 outside Tesla, do you see those in-car routing systems solving some of these pain points?
At the end of the day, if you know you can stop and fill up, that's key. You need to have a visualization of that. I think walking through the differences is the most important part. If you simply put a flag on the map and start tossing kilowatts at people and plug acronyms, they might get a sense of starting to understand what that might mean for them to a point. But I think the promise of kilowatt is a big problem. Is if you use kilowatt, people expect to get that number.
Yeah.
And if it's off by 1, 10, 20 or something, immediately the idea is there's something wrong. When in reality, you can be off by 30 kilowatt and your fill-up time might be a difference of 28 seconds.
No one actually knows how to test the octane of the fuel that comes out of the...
Right.
Okay, so between 2017 and now, what did you learn and how did you update Chargeway?
What we learned was, so thinking about the version 1 of our software and how it looked starting out, again, about 6 years ago, we wanted to get a sense for were we on the right track for how people would visualize this? And the answer was yes. Now, to an extent, the early adopters that we were obviously talking to on a regular basis, they said, well, we've already learned it all. We don't want to relearn something new. But for new people and the audiences that Electrify Expo is engaging with, and going beyond that market share of more than 8%, this is where we found that we were really engaging with them on getting them past the learning curve and saying, you don't need to be scared of this. We can show you. And so with today, what we're announcing with Chargeway, with our version 1, is, well, we're moving into version 2. And so version 2 of our platform is really a step in a new direction for how you can see what we're doing on behalf of you as the EV owner. And it still revolves around the vehicle you selected. So once you've chosen your vehicle, then it really focuses on how do you customize that experience. And it focuses on everything from, okay, the battery, you can move your battery state of charge, visualize it very simply and easily, but you can also customize it. But what this then combines is we used to have 2 separate features of understand how long charging takes, and then you can go back to the map. Well, we've combined those features now. So once you've adjusted inside of your vehicle how much range you have left and how much range you want, then any station pin you click on the map is going to have your vehicle's charge curve and estimated charge time associated with those simple power levels directly on the station.
So when I route within the app, you'll say at this station, based on its power you know, A, here's the available ones, but B, it will take this many minutes to get to the designated level.
And based on that vehicle's charge curve and based on the power of that station. And the reality is this amps and volts that go into this, is it a 800 volt vehicle, a 400 volt vehicle? Is the coupler 200 amps? And is that reducing the max kilowatt? This gets written about all the time, and you see it on owner's groups. We just burned through all that and said, we're doing all the thinking for you. And this works for every single brand of vehicle everywhere in North America.
And every charging station now?
And every charging station. So over 40 networks listed in Chargeway, and the beauty of it is we've now added real-time availability for some of the major networks here in North America. So that was another thing, was always a request. We want to see what chargers are available, what chargers are in use. So now at each station you can click on that power level to see which charger and how, if it isn't online, is available, is in use.
Yeah. And is this available now?
Yes, so the beauty of it is today, this is launching in the App Store today on both iOS and Android. We did not forget you Android users. It is also for Android.
Thank you, Matt.
Yes, yes. So, hey. So stepping into what next steps look like, it also is revolving around our trip planner. You mentioned, like, how does this end up looking? Our trip planner works for every EV in North America. And one thing we've always been seeing in the last 5-6 years is, how do we help owners that can't take advantage of the best chargers at station know which one to choose? So,
would we be talking about drivers of a certain high volume, low priced vehicle from one of the Detroit 2.5?
They want to bolt in and bolt out of the station, but they can't, I think. No, that's what we focused on, was saying if we route you through a trip and we show you the station to stop at, based on your vehicle, we will then show you, this is a recommended power level for you, because you'll see directly on the station info, your charge time will not be better if you decide to just grab the higher power charger.
Right. And I should apologize. We get a little inside nerdy here. Chevy Bolt EVs and EUVs max out at a charge rate of 55 or 6 kilowatts under best circumstances.
Level 4 in Chargeway.
As the man said. What color?
Green.
Green. All right. But there have been many cases of Bolts going to a 350 kilowatt charging station and saying, my car will charge faster, and becoming very vociferous that in fact this is happening when it's not happening.
Well, people think if I grab Hyper, that's better because I was told it was Hyper.
Yeah.
Well, they need to know what their vehicle can do. So we're in the UI of our software. Whatever your car is, we will give you the recommended power level so that we can optimize station utilization and station throughput. And really, if someone says you can't use that charger, show them Chargeway. That'll help them understand. So this overall is a reimagining of the UI and of how we can make it easier. But the next step we're looking at is it's about stations, it's about trips. But as we've been hearing today, it is also about energy.
Is this where I say, but wait, I gather there's more?
There's more. So with version 2 of Chargeway, we're really excited to be, and again, we're in Austin today, not by accident or coincidence to announce this, is we've been working with utilities around the United States, which include Austin Energy. And starting in 2024, we're going to be utilizing this new version of Chargeway to introduce people to the energy tab in Chargeway so they can understand how they're using their energy based on their lifestyle. So that could be home charging management, it could be public charging opportunity, and what that energy use looks like. So today I'd like to bring in Cameron from Austin Energy to really discuss what this relationship looks like both in the past and to today and the future.
Well, thank you very much to you both. As Matt mentioned, my name is Cameron Freeberg with Austin Energy. And for those of you who don't know, Austin Energy is our municipally owned local utility here in Austin, Texas. Now, first, selfishly, I just want to know by show of hands, who here is not from Austin? That is a pretty significant amount of people in this audience not from Austin. So first of all, welcome to Austin, Texas. And for those of you that are local, welcome back to the Electrify Expo, or if it's your first time here, welcome to the Electrify Expo. So we've had tons of conversations today so far on the customer experience. And that is one of our main focuses as a local utility, as a municipal government, is really enhancing that experience for our customers. When we talk about our partnership with Chargeway, that's exactly what these enhancements are doing. And that's one thing that we've worked with them over the last several years to get to our customers, is making that switch to electric easier, more transparent, and easier to understand. We talk in terms like kilowatts, kilowatt hours, watts, amps, volts, levels, etc. We might just be nerds. but that's not really transferable to the general audience. So how do we make that message easier? And we really look forward to continue to work with Matt and their team on getting those messages out to our customers. Secondly, I just want to acknowledge what a huge event the Electrify Expo is. This is our third year here in Austin hosting the Electrify Expo. And we've been in this industry, Austin Energy's been in the electric transportation space for about 12 years. So 10 years ago, an EV event was probably nothing more than a couple people in a parking lot with a Nissan Leaf and a Chevy Volt just talking about it. Now we have tens of thousands of attendees here in Austin. We have every major manufacturer here. We have support from industry, from academia, from government to really get the message out around electric transportation throughout the world, actually. So this has been a huge event, and we're very excited to be a part of it as well. So over those last 12 years we've been in the electric transportation space, we've gotten to see this industry grow. We have over 40,000 electric vehicles here in Austin now. I remember when we got our 100th, I was like, oh, we have made it. There are tons of EVs on the road. But now that growth curve is just going steeper and steeper and steeper, and every manufacturer's bought in. The local industry for supporting it is growing and growing, so I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. So over those 12 years, we've got to do things like, we've got to put out our own charging infrastructure. We've got to take the lessons learned with that. One I'd like to highlight, actually, on the picture there to the right, you'll see a DC fast charger. Well, Austin Energy got to work with our local transportation department, among many other partners, to develop what we call Electric Drive. And that is a mobility hub that has DC fast charging, it has a solar kiosk for powering bikes and scooters, it has bike share, hiking bike trail, and it's all in the eco district. And we did actually change the name of a street to Electric Drive. And yes, we tried to change it to Electric Avenue because that's the first question everyone says, missed opportunity. But Electric Drive is better, actually. So we've got to do that. We've got to electrify our municipal fleet and do all the work that's associated with that. And it's been a great transformation. This is no longer a niche thing. It's no longer just a science project. It's no longer just something to show off. It's really an evolving industry, and we're so happy to be a part of it. And on the last note I'll just leave it with, since I have a very limited amount of time, is we have a fantastic team that I get to work on called the Electric Vehicles and Emerging Technologies team at Austin Energy. We will be here throughout the weekend. We have a huge activation out front. Just look for these wonderfully branded electric spirit and gas shirts. There may or may not be some available for those that stop by and talk to us. But yeah, thanks for a great event, and we will see you all this weekend.
So, you know, we've talked a lot today about electric vehicles and charging, both great aspects of it, not great aspects of the apps and stuff like that. But one of the things that was important about this, obviously, is the role of utilities, right, and how important they are, right? They are the new, I hate to use the analogy, but they are the new gas station, right? And providing those electrons and stuff. So it's really exciting to hear how utility like Austin Energy is working with companies like Chargeway to really actually, you know, sort of solve some of these consumer challenges and problems. And I know, Mac, you wanted to wrap up with something.
I really appreciate what we're here by accident here in Austin to do this. So I appreciate obviously the opportunity to present Chargeway 2.0 today. I invite everybody to download it. It's in the app stores now and Android and iOS. And also a big thank you to the team at Austin Energy for the partnership, and just looking forward to a really exciting 2024. And again, thank you to the Expo team. So.